Volkswagen has just revealed their ID Aero, which is a fully electric sedan. It's still a concept car and it was unveiled in China, and a full production variant is supposed to be coming in the second half of 2023 in China, and also it's going to start production for the European market also in 2023. So what you see here should be very close to being production ready, because it certainly does look like a real car that an individual should be able to drive. It doesn't have any of those crazy concept style designs or any of those esoteric designs, if you will. But why would they release a sedan of all things? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but right now the craze is certainly for SUVs. So why would a major company like Volkswagen, or really any other company, produce sedans? Well, it's mainly because EVs still suck. We're still in that first generation of electric vehicles, and the primary reason for building a sedan is for aerodynamic purposes. These EV cars need every edge that they can possibly get so they can have the longest possible range, right? Because what we see right now, a lot of the new electric vehicles that you see, they can only do about 200, 250 miles of range, some inferior number like that. And once it's a little bit cold out, that number drops in half to around 100, 125 miles of range, right? And when you drive the car a little bit harder, the range absolutely plummets. So right now, car companies are developing some sedans because not only do they look kind of sleek, but aerodynamically, it just makes sense to give these new EVs that edge. I don't think you're going to be seeing any legitimate EVs until we get to 2025. However, let's go into some of the specifications for this particular ID Aero. It's going to have a drag coefficient of 0.23, which is certainly good, but it's not amazing compared to other vehicles like the EQS Benz, right, which this looks very similar to. And you're going to be seeing a lot of vehicles in the EV space that kind of look the same. A lot of the sedans are definitely going to look the same because this is that generic design that's going to get that lowest coefficient of drag, and the vehicle is going to utilize low overhangs for the front and the rear with a long wheelbase to give the occupants as much space as possible. And that is one huge benefit of going with the EV. That battery pack is all on the floor, so the occupants have far more space inside than a traditional vehicle. This car is going to be equipped with a lithium-ion battery with a net energy content of 77 kilowatts, and they're saying that range is going to be upwards of 620 kilometers or 385 miles of range. That sounds pretty good, definitely rivals something like Tesla, right, with their Model S. However, like I already mentioned, most of these cars, at least for this first generation, that 385 miles of range is going to plummet quickly if you drive really hard or if it's really cold out. That's just my guess. Again, 2025 and definitely 2030 is when these companies are really going to be investing hard into the electric car segment. Every car company will be exclusively making EVs by 2030. This car is going to have 22-inch wheels, at least that's what they have showcased here on this concept car. Now, the original car is probably going to come with 20s and 21s. I hope at least, because that's going to be far better for the ride quality. And another really cool thing is going to be the paint job. This concept car at least has this polar light blue metallic paint, which is a light metallic color with pigments that create a golden shimmer in the proper light conditions. So that's very cool. Hopefully they can at least offer that as an option, because, you know, any bit of character that they can inject into these EVs will be greatly appreciated. They've already taken the heart out of all of these cars, right? The engine. When you have EVs, how are companies going to differentiate themselves when every car is electric? No character, no soul. What can companies do? Well, I think little things like an interesting paintwork can definitely sprucing things up. And Volkswagen has some pretty lofty goals, like a large company like this should. They're aiming to be the leading supplier of sustainable vehicles in China. As early as 2030, it is planned that at least every second vehicle sold in China will be an electric vehicle. So they keep putting a lot of emphasis on China. Why is that? It's because they are a global superpower. They have money. People love cars over there, and they buy them up like crazy, you know, much like the United States. But let's get back to reality. Is this a vehicle that you, your family, should be considering? Well, they mentioned Europe and China, that this vehicle a production model will be ready by 2023, but they didn't really say anything about the United States market. It's coming, but they didn't really specify if it's going to be coming in 2023 for the US. They've already made the ID4 here, which does not look that appealing at all. But again, it's one of those first generation cars. Volkswagen, they definitely know how to do great car design, and more EVs are coming. You see this Aero, and I'm sure they have more SUVs planned that are going to look similar to this, that carry this kind of premium look and feel, right? Unlike the ID4. This car looks very similar to the Lucid Air and the EQS, but being a Volkswagen, I'm sure this is going to come in at a much better price point, but not by much. I think it's still going to be very expensive, probably between 60 and 70 grand is what this car is shaping to look like, in my opinion. I'm still more excited to see what Hyundai and Kia and Toyota have planned, because I want to see more $20,000 to $40,000 EVs that are of a decent size that a family can make use of, that have some quality batteries, that aren't going to deplete and plummet right away when you get on the throttle or when it gets a little bit chilly outside, right? But here's our look at the ID Aero. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll leave the next video on the end screen here.